To begin this book, let me introduce myself and the purpose of this document. I am not a scholar or have a doctorate in theological studies. I do have 2 bachelors of science in biology and dental hygiene respectively. Not that either helps in studying theology. The motivation to write this book came from my faith in Jesus Christ. I was privileged enough to be born in a loving Christian home. However, there comes a time in a person's life when they must make the decision about what they will believe. This journey started in my early 20s. Now, stepping out of my 20s, I am thankful my faith is grounded in realities and facts. 1 Peter 3 verse 15 states, "But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give a defense to anyone who asks you to account for the hope that is in you, but do so with gentleness and respect." This book is my response to this statement. Chapter 1. To my 21st century mind, I know the universe had a beginning, and I thought that was the case throughout history. I've come to realize that the scientific view of the universe having a beginning, rooted in the Big Bang theory, emerged in the early 20th century, especially during the 1920s. This idea was supported by Edwin Hubble's discovery of the universe's expansion and Georges Lemaitre's proposal, which later became known as the Big Bang theory, forming the basis for this understanding. We also know today galaxies are separated by only a finite distance. It's clear that the universe could not have been expanding infinitely into the past. At some point in the finite past, all matter must have been extremely close together. The second law of thermodynamics states that heat cannot spontaneously flow from a colder object to a hotter one. Instead, heat naturally moves from hot to cold, and reversing this process requires external work. This principle is closely tied to the concept of entropy, which always increases in an isolated system undergoing any spontaneous change. Entropy is a fundamental aspect of the universe and plays a key role in the question of whether the universe had a beginning. Entropy is a measure of disorder or randomness in a system. Imagine a clean room where everything is neatly organized. Over time, if no one tidies up, the room gets more messy. That's entropy increasing. Nature tends to move from order to disorder unless energy is used to keep things organized. In science, this concept applies to heat, energy, and matter. For example, heat flows from hot to cold, not the other way around, because that increases entropy. Ice melts into water because the molecules move more freely. More disorder equals more entropy. In short, low entropy equals more order. High entropy equals more disorder. Over time, entropy tends to increase in the universe. If the universe had no beginning, it would have existed for an infinite amount of time. In that case, it would be a system that never depletes or wears out, which would contradict the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy, the natural tendency for systems to move from order to disorder, is statistically irreversible over time. While temporary decreases in entropy can occur, they are brief and unstable. If the universe had existed eternally as an isolated system, it would have already reached a state of maximum entropy, where no usable energy remains and no meaningful activity could occur. Yet the universe is still dynamic. Stars burn, galaxies form, and life exists, clear signs that we have not reached thermal equilibrium. This strongly suggests the universe had a beginning and started in a state of low entropy. This low entropy beginning is often cited in support of the fine-tuning argument. For life to exist, the universe must satisfy a number of highly specific and improbable conditions. Their precise alignment is so unlikely that attributing them to mere chance seems unreasonable, prompting some to consider the possibility of supernatural design. Moreover, to reverse entropy from disorder to order requires external input, which contradicts the idea of an eternally isolated system. Taken together, these points make it rational to conclude that our universe had a beginning. Currently, the scientific consensus is that before the Big Bang, the universe existed as a singularity, an extremely small, hot, and dense point containing elementary particles such as quarks, electrons, and neutrinos. Some astrophysicists suggest that our universe may be the result of a previous, older universe. While views vary, many agree that the universe could not have arisen from nothing. Something must have triggered its existence. Even theories involving quantum fluctuations in a vacuum raise a deeper question. What caused those fluctuations in the first place? Given that the universe must have had a beginning, a cause for its existence, and a reason for its extraordinary fine-tuning, I came to the conclusion that there must be a being behind it all, one that is eternal and without a beginning. Such a being would provide a logical explanation for the universe's existence and the precise conditions that allow life to flourish. But reaching that conclusion led me to deeper questions. How can I be sure I'm worshiping the true being? Does this being even desire worship? And most importantly, has this being ever revealed itself to humanity? I reasoned that there's a strong possibility that this eternal being would desire to interact with its creation, just as we, being creators ourselves, often seek connection with and improvement of what we make. If we were made by this being, we might share that trait. And if this being has reached out to humanity, it would likely reveal its nature, offering reasons to believe it is the creator. That would include possessing knowledge beyond human capacity, of the past, present, and future, and performing acts that defy scientific explanation. Its intelligence would far surpass ours, and its essence might even be beyond human comprehension. With this framework in mind, I began testing my questions against the God revealed in the Bible. Chapter 2. To honestly evaluate Christianity, the faith I was born into, I knew I had to begin with the Bible, since the core claims of Christianity are rooted in its texts. Just as one would turn to the U.S. Constitution to understand American history rather than French law, it made sense to examine the Bible as the foundational document of the Christian faith. If the God described in both the Old and New Testaments can be shown to be trustworthy, then Christianity itself gains credibility. The Bible opens with a powerful declaration. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In just one sentence, it introduces a creator who is responsible for all things, answering one of my biggest questions right away. Genesis, along with the first 5 books of the Bible, is traditionally attributed to Moses, who is believed to have lived around the 13th or 14th century BC. According to biblical timelines, Moses was born around 1526 BC and was 80 years old at the time of the Exodus, which places that event around 1446 BC. Given this time frame, it's highly unlikely that Moses could have known how the universe began or the sequence of creation events, especially considering that the culture he was raised in, ancient Egypt, held very different beliefs. The Egyptians believed in a pantheon of gods, with the world emerging from primordial waters through the god Adam. Their creation myths were filled with symbolic and competing deities, quite unlike the biblical claim of a single sovereign creator. That alone makes the opening statement of Genesis strikingly unique for its time and culture. The biblical account of creation begins with the earth formless and empty, covered in darkness, while the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Then God spoke, "Let there be light," and light was seen on earth. He saw the light was good and separated it from darkness, calling the light day and the darkness night. This marked the first day. God then separated the waters, forming the sky above and waters below. Next, he gathered the waters under the sky to reveal dry land, naming the dry ground land and the gathered waters seas. He then brought forth vegetation, plants and trees bearing fruit. God placed lights in the sky, the sun, moon, and stars, to give light to the earth and to mark days, seasons, and years. Following this, he filled the waters with sea creatures and the sky with birds. Then, he created animals on the land, livestock, wild animals, and all creatures that move along the ground. Finally, God said, "Let us make mankind in our image." So he created humans in his likeness, male and female, and gave them dominion over all living things on earth. Modern science proposes that Earth developed in a series of stages that led to its current state, beginning with the formation of the core and crust, followed by the creation of oceans, the emergence of life, and the evolution of ecosystems and climates over billions of years. Research suggests that around 3 billion years ago, during the Archean Eon, Earth may have been a water world almost entirely covered by ocean, with little to no visible land. This theory is supported by studies of ancient oceanic crust, which indicate that Earth's oceans were once much larger than previously believed. Additionally, scientific theories about early Earth describe a time when thick dust and debris, caused by intense asteroid and meteorite bombardment during the Hygienist Eon, may have blocked sunlight from reaching the surface, contributing to the planet's dim and mysterious environment. Interestingly, many of these scientific findings align with the biblical account of creation. For example, both science and the Bible agree that plant life appeared before animal life. Scientific consensus holds that photosynthetic single-celled organisms existed long before the evolution of multicellular animals, an idea that mirrors the biblical sequence of creation. These connections have strengthened my faith in the Bible. Unlike many other religious creation stories, Christianity's narrative appears to have elements that align with scientific discovery. The main point of debate remains the Bible's reference to creation happening in 7 days. Personally, I believe that if a divine being capable of creating the universe exists, then creating everything in 7 24-hour days is not beyond possibility. However, I also find it unlikely that it all happened in such a short span of human time. For example, on the sixth day of creation, the Bible describes God bringing all the animals to Adam to name them, and later creating Eve from Adam's rib, all within the same day. This seems implausible if taken literally. Moreover, passages like 2 Peter 3 verse 8 and Psalm 90 verse 4 clearly state that God's concept of time differs from ours. For this reason, I believe that the creation story may have unfolded over a longer period than a literal week.